You're on StratNews Global, and I'm Nitin Gokhale. And today, we're going to discuss an important topic in the times of coronavirus pandemic, the effect of COVID-19 on everybody's life as far as the life is concerned here. Now, everybody's life as far as the life is concerned here. COVID-19 everybody's life as far as the life is concerned here. COVID-19 everybody's life as far as the life is concerned here. COVID-19 everybody's life as far as the life is I think there is a network issue, but we'll come to you. I think there is everything in loop. There is a network issue. Somebody's YouTube is open. Please close the YouTube. Everything in loop. Okay, I'm sorry for the glitch right at the beginning, but welcome to this program, and I want to introduce my guest. What we are going to discuss here is basically the importance of telecom networks in our lives. As this COVID-19 pandemic has shown us, we not only need a reliable network, but we need a secure network. And as one of my guests said in the beginning when we were discussing offline, he was saying that the earlier notion of the strategic networks to be secured was that only they are important, and the common networks that we have for common citizens and consumers are not so important. But today, after COVID-19 pandemic and the disruption that has come into our life, I think we now know that how broadband and secure and reliable broadband as well as connectivity is extremely important. And I'm pleased to be joined on this program by stalwarts of telecom industry. First, Professor Kamakoti, who is member of the National Security Advisory Board. Also, he teaches at the IIT Madras and does several nationally important projects which he leads. Apart from him, I must introduce Dr. Kumar N Sivarajan, who is the Chief Technology Officer and Co-Founder of Tejas Networks India, doing an important work in the sector. And Satish Jamadagni, who is Vice President Reliance Jio, Head of Standards, who also is working on, and you've heard Jio in the news segment or in news media of late because of the kind of investments it is getting and the kind of technology that they are now building for India. So let me first start with Professor Kamakoti, whose idea this was, and I must greet him on his birthday. This is his birthday today. And thank you for taking time off, Professor Kamakoti, for joining us on this program. Now, the question is, while you mentioned during our discussion that all networks need to be secure, not just strategic networks. And therefore, we need homegrown telecom networks in the country. And you're leading some of that effort as member of the NSAB. So tell us, why do you think homegrown networks are important?
Right. As you first, thanks for the wishes. And as you had rightly mentioned in the beginning of the introduction, that today with COVID, everybody realizes that the entire living is, based on some sort of connectivity. Even if you want to get an essential today to your house, you need a connectivity. You have to make an order. Especially in this lockdown type of situation, this is becoming very, very crucial. For example, yes, many students or kids today are having online classes. Many job goers are now working from home, and the companies that have also realized that working from home is much more productive. So, for example, the last semester we completed entirely by online, and all these things would have taken a very bad hit if somebody desired to do so and really come and mess up with our network. They need not even attack our network; they can just throttle our network. Today, they can make this entire video conferencing a big mess by just throttling making our lips not sync to the speech, right? So this is the impact which today telecommunication network has on the society, specifically now illuminated by the corona pandemic. The corona pandemic actually exposed and showed the importance of this. Um, and the second thing is today, finance is treated as a critical sector, and the finance is not just restricted to strategic units, the strategic in the conventional sense that we are talking of. Finance transaction happens on everybody's mobile phone today. So, and today the networks are connected in such a way that the line between what is strategic and what is not strategic is sort of diminishing, right? And then there are people associated with strategic who have to basically come out and mingle in public also. And so there are certain communication equipments which do this bridging. It may not be efficient or possible to have a air gap for everything, right? And we really don't know how effective an air gap is, right? Keeping all these things in mind, yes, so far there has been one pain point in the networking era, as I understand as a computer scientist. I think Kumar and Satish can elucidate more on that. That we had specific hardware which was doing these stuffs. The specific application specific hardware that was needed for doing certain network efficient networking was predominant, and that is why the dependency on the hardware was too high. And as we moved to 4G and then to 5G and 6G that we are talking of, the whole thing has become software running on commodity hardware, except some parts of the radio, etc. So this is the real time where we have been debating over last several months now, and several times answering this irritating question, that really an irritating question, saying, can India do it, right? So India has done everything in software today. We have our major giants here who have done large amount of software, and there are companies like what Kumar is saying, which has been actually developing hardware of very high caliber, right?
So let me take, yeah, you want to complete?
Yeah, I just want to complete. So now the software presence has come in. That comes with one advantage and one disadvantage. Of course, many Kumar and Satish can elaborate on that. An advantage being that I can write the software, it will belong to us. I can have the choice of making it open or keeping it closed. I can make it available to people to actually look into it, make some, makes a security audit. Unlike in hardware, where in 1 square centimeter I put billion transistors and nobody knows what is inside. And this software can basically run on commodity hardware, many of the software in the stack. And that gives us a wonderful opportunity for India now to pitch in. And that has been the force. And so I think this is the real opportune moment where all the service providers like Satish should basically use the equipment manufacturers like Kumar, and also us as advisor or whatever they want, to build up this. And this is the right opportune moment. And the moment software is in our control, we can change things. We can put our own standards. For example, India is coming out with the LMLC, the large mobility, low mobility, large coverage standard. It is one of the standards which India is promoting, and it's almost through to the ITU, right? And this can become crucial for us. And this is the right opportune moment.
Right. So let me take this to Dr. Kumar Sivarajan. Professor Kamakoti spoke about the need for the homegrown network, and Tejas Networks has been one of the pioneers in this. Are we at an inflection point where India can deliver something for its own citizens and something that is in control of an Indian entity? What's your view on that?
I think so. I think we are at the inflection point. We started 20 years ago. Okay, so we started in optical and then we diversified slowly because we are building, let's say we are bootstrapping in some sense. Okay, and many of us saw the need to take India to the next level in telecom. So in fact, Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy, IIT Madras director, myself, a few others, Professor Abhay Karandikar from IIT Bombay, now Kanpur. We were trying to work with standards bodies, with 3GPP, right? And then we had to become members of HC to do this. We said that's a shame. Why should we join the European Standards Organization in order to work with 3GPP for standards for India? So we then started TSDSI, and all of us have been chairman by turn in some sense. So we've been trying to do telecom from India. Abhay, Bhaskar, myself, in our own way, and then we were trying to do it, at least in Tejas, the hard way. Go after small customers, then get bigger customers, and so on. In India, the strategic sector, what do you call, have been supporters in their own ways. A lot of BSNL, power, oil, all those sectors have a lot of Tejas in their telecom networks, but largely, we just got there on, let's say, merit. The PMA helped a little bit in the last few years, but there was no notion that it has to be fully Indian, except I think for BharatNet, they said to the Indian because there are enough players.
Right.
I think, sometimes they say that if you want to do something, the universe conspires to help you. I think it's a quote from a famous novel. So I think we're trying to do this, and at the end of 2019 or early 2020, the universe said, yes, we're going to support you now. There was COVID, which sort of set the stage, and there was Galvan, which I like to pun, galvanized India into action. Okay, so I think that has now set the stage for Indian companies to be really heard. And I think everyone's taking a hard look at what can be done from India, not just from my company, but from all the companies in India. What is the strength of India? What's the strength of the software sector, and so on, right? So I think we are at the inflection point where now the country is seriously looking at Atmanirbharta, and it helps, helps to have this movement, which we can follow. So the answer to your question, the short answer is yes, we are at an inflection point, thanks to many things, like God, whatever, and government's policy also helps. Everything seems to be falling in place.
That's great to know. Satish, let me come to you on this. And the program that we are doing today is actually called Atmanirbharta in Next Generation Telecom Networks in India. And Jio has been at the forefront. It's been in the news, as I mentioned right at the beginning. Tell us what are your plans, and how confident are you that an homegrown network, telecom network, which is secure, which is reliable, and which is inexpensive in India, that is also one of the QRs, I guess. So tell us what the plans are and how are you doing it?
Yes, there are two factors why it's important to have our own equipment. One is, of course, because of all the data-related issues which are going on in the country. There's a lot of sensitivity around data sovereignty, and that is something which is actively being discussed. And that is also one of the reasons why 5G is so politicized, primarily because it is data, and it also hinges on the notion of sovereignty. So, unlike in 4G, just about everything is expected to be on the 5G network. IoT devices, it's not just your laptop and your phone which is connected to the network, but your home appliances, and just about everything is connected. So that in itself is a huge security risk for multiple reasons. IoT space is one of the space where you keep hearing about attacks every third day, and it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
Then there is that is one part of the story. Then comes the other part of the story, which is the cost. So in 4G, what happened was 4G networks are on a slightly lower frequency band, so coverage is slightly better. But come to 5G, it is going to be on higher bands. Even if it is sub 6 gigahertz, it's going to be on higher bands. Higher bands means you have lesser coverage. So lesser coverage is more number of base stations primarily. I mean, you have to put in more number of base stations. So our own estimate says in Reliance Jio, a thumb rule estimate says that for every LTE cell today, what we have, we will have anywhere from 5 to 10 5G base stations. So one LTE base station today will translate to anywhere from 5 to 10 5G base stations. And 5G is a new technology. There's a lot of IP issues, so IP costs initially will be much higher. And if we are the ones who will be deploying initially or much earlier, the cost is that much more higher because initially the costs are always higher. So 1:10, you're talking about on an average, even if you average it out, okay, 1:6 or 1:7 is what you're talking about. 1:7 is the cost of rolling out 5G throughout India, and in comparison with what we did for LTE. So I don't have the exact figures, some ballpark figures. You must have, it's all available in the press, so it should be easily accessible. They say the LTE rollout cost was something close to about across all operators in India. You can look at it. It's available in the GSMA report. Something about $100 billion. $100 billion. Now $100 billion into 7 is what you're talking about approximately. I mean, ballpark figures.
Correct.
Into 7. So cost is a big factor. So we have to indigenize. And if you do not indigenize, cost is a big factor. It's going to hit you very badly because, or what happens is the cost is very high. Then you will have to, the scale of deployment becomes slower. So these are the two factors why we want to do it. The second part of your question was, are we capable of doing it? So the program inside of Reliance, you must have heard, I don't have to mention this because you must have heard in the news reports, it's already been announced by our chairman that we will do it. Correct. So once the statement is out there that we will do it, we will do it.
You have to do. Yeah.
And Dr. Kumar Sivarajan was talking about some inflection points. So there is a lot of inflection points as far as 5G is concerned. It's not your conventional LTE network. See, conventional LTE network, one of its key things was your radio, multiple streams of radio you would handle at any one point of time, which we call as MIMO, was never a issue. And nobody went beyond 4x4. So simple things like, say, for example, antenna that you put up the tower, the radio tower, was about 4 or 5 kgs, nothing beyond that. But in 5G, it's not going to work. So people are talking about 32 streams, 32 cross 32, and that's what it means in MIMO terminology, multi-input, multi-input streams, parallel streams. Those are going to be in the order of about 50, 60 kgs. I'm just talking about the antenna panel plus power amplifier, whatever heat sinks that go into. So it's huge. So what I mean to say is, this is a time where technology is changing. That means all companies, existing companies, incumbents, and newcomers, everybody has to look for new technologies. So suddenly you're finding we are finding ourselves in a stage, in a time where we are on par. I can say we are on par with quite a few of these big companies because they are also scavenging for new technologies. We are also scavenging for new technologies. And that's an opportunity for us.
So that's great. In fact, Kamakoti, sir, the fact is that the process has already begun of indigenization. The other question that comes up always is how much of the hardware and the software it will be indigenized? How much of the technology will be indigenous? It's something that you can shed light on, you can focus on and tell us, because that's the question everybody has uppermost in their mind.
So I can basically talk the more of the computer science aspect while I leave the remaining parts of the video to Kumar and Satish. From the computer science point, anything beyond the core and above to the other part of the network. So there is an end device and it goes all the way to a cloud. Probably anything above core and above can be completely the software can be completely developed in India. Right, and we have the brains to do that, and I think we have enough talent pool. Every big company had their branch offices in India, and we see a lot of Indians actually worked in this, and very senior people who can actually pitch in and make a difference. And we have seen there's a lot of concurrency that's going to come in, as Satish also mentioned. In the software area also, we're going to see a lot of MIMO type of parallel threading running, and this type of concurrent programming, Indians are very good at it, and we have seen many good products that have come. So I think software can be completely indigenized, and the hardware can be commercially off the shelf. And hardware manufacturing, we need a fab, and that will take some time. But this hardware it need not be tied to a single vendor, but it can be got from multiple vendors, and then such type of an heterogeneous network beyond the core will actually add quite a bit to our security, right? I'm basically the concern, as Satish also put it, it's all security about, right? So we don't say that. So the software has to be hacked, and the software has to be changed for an hardware vulnerability to show up. So because the software is basically the brain of this entire stuff, and if we have that software under control and we put amount of secure layers on top of it, and make it run on commercial hardware, and then make it an heterogeneous network, not the same hardware everywhere, I think we have reasonable amount of control this, and that should be completely indigenous, this activity.
So basically, you're saying that you diffuse the ownership, you don't concentrate in one or two owners or companies, so that you have the kind of security that is inbuilt. Let me come to Kumar on this. He spoke about Kamakoti spoke about the software can be indigenous completely. You are into the hardware segment of it, and you've done this before. But how much of it is sort of indigenous, and how confident are you that once you do it for India, you will also have other markets to access and compete in?
Okay, so so our approach to this has been what we call software-defined hardware. But let me explain what that means.
Okay.
What Professor Kamakoti is talking about in the core and all that is you're running on, let's say, familiar hardware, essentially servers which can be virtualized and so on, right? So it's software which runs on general purpose hardware. Okay. What we do is also software. So if you take layer 1 signal processing, it's software. We start with MATLAB equations and write the code, and then we do the same thing for scheduling, quality of service, all of it, right? But it doesn't run on general purpose hardware. It runs on special purpose hardware, but which is still in a sense commodity, in the sense the maker of that hardware does not control what goes inside. Think of it as a processor. Intel makes processors on which you build servers. So does AMD and ARM today, and also Professor Kamakoti. But we run on signal processing, DSPs, which are also processors, except they are special purpose processors. But there are multiple vendors. So if I use a DSP chip from vendor A, I can port my code to vendor B. So that vendor of the chip does not control the software that goes on the chip. Similarly, I use network processors. I use FPGAs. All three are different kinds of processors. So what we do is also software, except it's a different kind of software which runs on special purpose, but still commodity hardware, right? So why do I say commodity? Because that hardware is easily replaceable. I can run it on a different DSP. I can run on a different network processor because all the stuff is done in the code. Now, there is no Indian maker of DSP chips or network processors or FPGAs. Except for Professor Kamakoti's new processor, there is no Indian maker of processors. So that is true. But that problem can be solved independently. Someone can embark on that and we can adopt that processor. The second part of the hardware is actual, physical devices for RF, power amplifiers, modulators. But that I see is not a security risk because over time we can indigenize that too from an economic perspective, but you can't hack the network with the power amplifier. You can't program it to fail or do anything like that. So with the use of, let's say, physical components, which are not a security threat, but still economically we should make them in India, and special purpose processors on which we write software, effectively the whole thing is software, but it's a different kind of software.
Right.
Okay. So we do build the whole thing on software. That's the short answer.
That's actually, that's great to know, because there exists the talent, the technology, and the skills that are required to do what you've just mentioned. But let me come to Satish on that point. That vulnerability of networks depending on foreign inputs or foreign vendors or even components is something that the government must be quite worried about. In that context, how is Jio looking to scale up its own, kind of platform and own technology when it comes to 5G? Because that announcement has happened, but everybody is curious that what is it that you're going to bring to the table to make it secure for the country and for country's citizens.
So There are competent people inside of Reliance Jio to comment on the state of affairs. But if I may, generally talk about general vulnerability as far as hardware is concerned,
Right.
uh, you must have noted that very recently, shipment of hardware from China to US was found to be bugged at the hardware level, and that was in the press. So I'm just quoting the press. So vulnerabilities are there at every single level. Uh, so the way to handle that is to indigenize hardware as well.
Okay.
And as I said, we have opportunities to indigenize hardware now. Primarily because if you look at the hardware industry today, there is inflection point even in the hardware industry.
Okay.
Now, let me explain this. Let me give you an example. If you look at the AI chips which are coming out today, there are AI chips which will give you cost and power benefits over the conventional architectures, your Intel regular architectures, and even DSP architectures. Now, those are special purpose processors. You cannot generally use it in other places. But the special hardware, the core that they have, is only one small part of it. But the rest of the hardware is generic enough, so you can primarily make use of it. AI hardware today, there are companies, startups who claim that they can give 30 teraflops, 30 teraflops,
Right.
EFLOPS. That is a compute measure. 30 teraflops are $30. Do you know how much you have to pay if you go to I don't want to name the company here, but one of the most popular chips to get 30 teraflops, it's $8,000.
Right.
So you see the scale of inflection point even in the hardware space. Now, obviously, one will have to put a lot of money to adapt the so-called new hardware architectures which are coming in to work in 5G space, because a lot of customization has to be done. Software porting has to be done. That's not a trivial job. Enough has to be done. But what I'm saying is, even hardware for the first time is within reach of India. Everything here, you can always, you buy a stake in an Israeli company, you buy a stake in an American company, or there are ways of managing that you have a big stake in the hardware, that you don't necessarily have to face the security risk of everything having to come from one part of the world geography. So we are today at that point. We are privileged. We are even before COVID. This is not COVID. This is AI chips have brought in this inflection point.
Right.
Now, these are all strategic inputs that we have to use to our advantage in India. The Indian ecosystem will have to leverage on this. So, huge cost benefits are coming because of the new compute architectures which are coming out. Huge power benefits are coming in, because I'll tell you, you cannot. We've been talking about general purpose hardware to be used in 5G.
Right.
The problem is these are all hardware, general purpose hardware works under heavy AC in AC rooms with certain temperature constraints. Now, if you put that on a tower, 40 degrees centigrade in one part of India, it's not going to work. So there are those issues as well. One will have to look at. So power is a huge issue that we will have to solve. Not just us, I mean the entire industry. So that also brings us on par. It gives a certain amount of leverage. So hardware, I believe, has to be indigenized, not necessarily by looking at totally fab and complete design, one-to-one mapping. We're gonna replicate what Intel has done. No, that's a 20-year job. It's not gonna happen. We have to look at new strategic initiatives which are coming out. So, for example, you invest in an AI company, you take out their, put a few cores here and there, and you have your processor up and running, which is secure because you have a control on the complete design. So that's the approach I see going forward for 5G from a hardware perspective. Software, of course, we have a lot of houses.
I get the point. Professor Kamakoti, in defense, which has been there for some time now, a category for procurement in defense called IDDM, indigenously designed, developed, and manufactured products. Something similar can be thought about in telecom, I guess. But as a member of the NSAB, how worried are you about a cyber attack, which to me looks imminent in coming months and years? And to prevent that, I guess you are advocating, and all of us should support it, an indigenous network which is in full control. Is that something that you're looking at in IIT Madras and as in your individual capacity?
Yeah, so that's very, very important question. So the next war would be a cyber war, and in that case, we need to have something like a cyber readiness, right? So how there is a defense readiness. US had come out with DEFCON 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they had very, very specific definitions of this. What should be the preconditions and what is the action to be taken. I think that sort of a readiness has to come up, and that can come up as we can deterministically make such policies only when we have the network completely under our control, and that control can come only when we have it indigenous. At least the software layers should be under the control of India, in the sense that we should have the source code auditable by a government agency, and every equipment that is coming and put into any of these networks, whether it's private or government networks, should be registered, and we need to have a complete demography of this in some form. So that is quite important, and that readiness, if you want to build that readiness, the thing, for example, today a fake news can create chaos, right? And in WhatsApp, the amount of chaos it has created during COVID, eat garlic, tomorrow eat turmeric, whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
So these are some small things, but really a riot can be engineered just by putting a fake news, and people know what fake news will trigger what, a fake video. So, and today we have all issues about originator traceability in some of the social media. We can't trace who is the originator, and people can just get caught scot-free just doing whatever they want. So these type of things have to be quickly arrested. The spread of a fake news should be stopped to stop a riot. This is one part of the story. So that is the simplest of the war that could happen at say a district or a post office level, a pin code, right? I want to go and arrest that, but then it can go to major national level, say stock exchanges or banks being hacked and things like that. It could go into a financial war also. And
right.
The other type of thing is that today, the way I can disrupt economy, the other way of I'm talking about the unlocking of Corona and the internet lockdown, where I can always try to create a situation where the government has to shut down the internet.
Sure.
And that can be another way of looking at this, and that can kill every economy today. So much of education can be killed. As a teacher, I am worried about it, right? So they can stop the online classes. We have got, right? And post-corona, this is going to be a norm. Like recording is going to be a norm. Today also we had a discussion. We'll record our lectures. The recording is a lot of benefits to the students. True. And people watch it all. So that type of a readiness, that type of a dimension can also happen. Like how I create chaos, create a situation where the government is forced to pull down everything.
I get your point. So
in these type of situations, how do we react? And that readiness has to come up, and we have to start working towards it. And that is one thing which, as an NSAB member, I am really worried, and we think that we need to bring it up. And that is we have an indigenous network.
I'm sure we are working on that and talking about wars and conflicts. Let me put this to all of you. There are questions from audience here. So one of the first questions, and I think all of you can read this. Because everybody is now looking at the situation in the line of actual control with China, the possibility of a conflict. So they're all asking whether 5G will enhance the capability of the Indian military in terms of speed, precision, stealth against adversary, and he's asking about especially against Pakistan. So one of you will have to take up this question. Any one of you. Kumar?
Yeah.
Okay. See. First, yes, it can definitely help. It has to be deployed, and it has to be deployed for the right kind of application. So if you look at 5G, beyond what we call enhanced mobile broadband, which is what we use today, there are two other applications, which is IoT, which is massive machine type communications, and which includes also V2X, which is vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to ground communications, and so on, right? And there is an even more more esoteric, which is ultra reliability, low latency communications. Let's just take the first one. So if the army were to deploy a massive IoT network where we have sensors all across the border, we know what is happening, it's constantly monitored. But constantly monitored doesn't mean you're putting video cameras, because that doesn't help to border. So you have to have, processing, artificial intelligence, and so on. So if you deploy that, then that can give you security. You can't have something like this, an incursion happen, right? You will know. You can monitor it remotely with sensors of various kinds. And then definitely the effectiveness of the military can improve if you have technologies like vehicle-to-vehicle communication or vehicle-to-infrastructure communication. If all of those things become reality. So everything we're talking about from a communications perspective in 5G, which is IoT, vehicle communication, AI, if that becomes a reality, clearly the effectiveness of the military will go up, right? And that is built into 5G. But it has to be deployed. Yeah.
Yes. In fact, that's extremely important to know in these times, tense times that are happening right now, not in the main cities, but at least on the border. But let me turn to Satish, and there is this common question not come here in the live audience. But one question is, and at least I've been hearing this from experts, that 5G is not just about mobility, not just about telephone mobility or telephony. It is much more. So if you can tell the viewers, what does 5G bring to the table, and why should we be ready, and why should we be looking forward to 5G?
So 5G, for the first time, has seriously attempted to converge almost anything else into the scope of what we call as 5G. Vehicle-to-vehicle, IoT, sensors, and stuff like that. More than anything else, the 5G core, the design of the 5G core is such that we used to be talking about convergence all along. Wi-Fi convergence, FTTX, or the fiber convergence onto a single core, which will allow you to deploy all kinds of services. It has not happened. It has not happened for multiple reasons. Now with the cloudification of the 5G core, or enough amount of cloudification in 5G, any service becomes just another application that you can just bring on to this platform. Just take an example. If everything is containerized, if everything is Kubernetes, then it's new addition of functionalities is an additional addition of a few more containers, and that's it. So that is one of the key advantages of 5G. Coming to the radio side, the design of 5G radio, if you look at it, can subsume a lot of other radio access technologies, including LTE. There is something called as dynamic spectrum sharing and other functionalities built into the into 5G networks, where, for example, you can keep offering LTE services going forward. Someday when your LTE is coming down and 5G user base is going up, you can, but from a 5G network. You don't need to have dedicated 4G towers. So in that sense, yeah, the architecture is such that everything is converging. Service convergence, you're talking about service convergence. For the first time in the history of 3GPP, because of all the cloud companies or the internet companies showing a lot of interest in the whole connectivity business, there is a services framework which is evolving within 3GPP, and this is happening for the first time. There is a services framework. When I'm talking about services framework, what it allows is you just bring in V2X services or apps, you plug it into your 5G network. And you want to bring in a surveillance network as an application service and plug it into the 5G network. The same is true for IoT, same is true for a lot of other services, drones, for example. Drones, the way you connect to drones and whatever security is needed, those all become slices and service enabled within a 5G network. That architecture is already there. In that sense, it is quite enabling, yes.
No, that's good to know from the perspective of common citizens that there are several applications, not just mobile telephony. There is a question for you, Kumar. Here it is. Any plan to simple broadband router for
the Indian market? Okay, for the simple device, we
depend on China, Taiwan, US.
Yeah, I think we are starting to see such requests, which we never saw till last year. Okay, now with the thing, we are starting to see requests for devices which we normally don't make, which includes the routers, the Geo. We made GPON, but we really focus on OLT, not the ONT, not the home devices. So actually, we have a program now to make some of these devices at home. So that we don't have to depend on China. Actually, we have launched that in the last couple of months, just as a replacement for people who want non-Chinese because of supply chain or just philosophy or whatever. So the answer is yes. We are starting to do these things. We used to focus only on the infrastructure. Now we're starting to look at devices that go into the home, fairly simple devices, very easy to design. And the only reason to do this is just to make it indigenous. So the answer is yes.
So I think before I go to Professor Kamakoti, there is one more question for you, Kumar, and here it is. And it's a tribute. Do you have any plans for international partnership?
Any international partnership, especially with respect to funds? Okay, so we've always, first 10 years we were largely Indian. Okay, so then we realized around 10 years ago that the Indian market went down for a while. There were some scams at Telecom and so on. Then we realized we have too much dependence on India. So we went outside and started to build the global market. And I can tell you that with what's happened with China, not Galvan, not even COVID, just previously with all the security issues and the US versus China problems, we've had a lot of interest from people who were very dependent on the Chinese players. In fact, there was one large international country, I won't name. The CEO, CTO, CFO, and the head of engineering flew down, spent a week in Bangalore. They said, our network is dependent on Huawei and ZTE. We want to visit your labs and your customers and see how you can come in. And I had that in another instance in another country as well. So yes, people worldwide are looking for an alternative to the Chinese. Of course, Europe does provide alternatives, but it's expensive. Plus, they don't want to necessarily be in a situation of having, one vendor. The costs go up significantly. So they look at us as a trusted alternative, or let's say European reliability and trust with the Chinese cost point or somewhere in between. So I think it's a good opportunity, which we all should seize, and all the companies in India should seize this.
It's a great opportunity from that point of view. Before I come to all of you for closing comments, there is an interesting question for you, Professor Kamakoti. Here it is.
From IITs and NITs and create an offensive cyber warfare unit like that of Israel's Unit 8200, which carried out Stuxnet attack. So traditionally, we have not attacked anyone, and that is why, just to add to Kumar's statement, people will trust us, right?
Right.
Because we have never gone and attacked anyone, and
we have not expunged this.
Yes, and of course, this question comes in another light that we need to have, like how we have built our weapons for the conventional warfare. There is needs for cyber weapons, more from a defensive angle, and also in case there is a necessity, there is a way to show our defense capabilities through a offensive defense, or what we call, right? So, right. So I think India has some of the brightest young ethical hackers. There is a program called Information Security Education Awareness Program, which is now 13 years old. So this notion of information security has been realized by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology 13 years before, and we are in the phase 2 of this program. In the first phase, there were around 20 institutions, if I'm correct. Now the second phase has 54, and the third phase now we are going to go, and it may have more than hundreds of institutions. And the preparedness that we want to do, just I'm expanding your question a little more, is that we need to bring in 3 types of security experts. One who can develop good secure products, and if you want to be a good policeman, you should know how the thief actually acts. So we should know all the vulnerabilities so that we fix these things. And the vulnerability can come, as Satish mentioned, it can be on the hardware, it can be on the microarchitecture, it can be on your operating system, it can be on your system program, it can be on your application program. So we need people who can develop software, programs that can, applications that can take care of all these security vulnerabilities. And there's a second thing which you do all this compliance audit. And the third important thing that comes is, after an event, how do you do a cyber forensics? And if you look at each sector like power or banking finance, even within banking finance, the DNA of an attack is going to be different. For example, in a bank, a hacker would be interested in stealing the money from one account. But in a, say, if there is a stock exchange, they would like to bring down the stock exchange. So the denial of service type of attack will come there. So sector-wise, there is a need for an expertise to develop. And that is something which, again, from an NSAB perspective, we are saying that there should be a sector-wise accreditation program. And this will basically create what you call as a cyber warriors, who can basically defend ourselves quite well against the attacks. And that should become quite, and we are also saying it should be a very tough exam like JEE Advanced or something, that it really people have to slog to come to clear those things. And then and people who occupy positions in different sectors, like in a bank MSc, so should have cleared some level of this accreditation, and that can give them a career prospect also. So this type of attempt we are trying to do, and that's a very broad answer. Of course, this will create very good cyber barriers.
I get your point. In fact, full spectrum capabilities have to be developed. So let me come to closing comments. First to Satish, that just to tell people that India is now poised for various reasons, various factors coming together, to have its own 5G technology, 5G network, and of course going forward, a network that is completely, or at least majority of it, completely indigenous and therefore secure. Is that something that one can tell our viewers and the people who are watching this program?
So, as Dr. Kumar was talking earlier, somehow the universe is coming together. A lot of factors are falling in place. For the first time, the hardware inflection point I spoke about is there. 5G is not your conventional radio technology, so that is also in our favor, at least not against us. For the first time, TSI has come together and we were able to get a victory in ITU. And today, 3GPP and the TSDSI submissions can officially be called as 5G technology. Only us, the Chinese contribution, the Korean contribution, and the EU, European contribution have been I don't know where they are. They're gone. So this is an opportunity for us. So your question was, can we do it? But we have to do it. This is an opportunity where a lot of things are favoring us. We should do it. This is a make or break point for multiple reasons, for security, for multiple other reasons.
For pride, for everything. So this, we are at a very, it's a sweet, if I can say that in cricketing parlance, we are in a sweet spot. Dr. Kumar, final word to you. How optimistic are you about indigenous technology or Indian technology becoming the overwhelming presence in India and then, of course, elsewhere in the world?
We definitely have the capability. We just need some opportunity. So India, I think, has sort of three technology, vehicles today: IT, pharma, and auto industry, largely auto parts. I think telecom can become the fourth. We have the capability. We just need some opportunity here to start in this market and then go global. So security is the focus of this talk. But another reason is not only saving cost, but also building another big component of the economy, of the export economy. So I think we should do it for that reason. ISRO launched satellites to prove we could do it, right? And now ISRO launches satellites for the whole planet. So
absolutely.
Same reason.
So the commercial success will follow once we have our
exactly. Pay back many times in terms of economic growth.
That's good to know. And on that note, let me thank all of you, and especially Professor Kamakoti, for taking time off, and the two of you, very busy people, Dr. Kumar and Satish Jamadagni, Unfortunately, a third specialist couldn't join us for whatever reason, but still we had a very insightful discussion and deliberation here. And there are several other questions that were waiting to be answered, but time does not permit us to take those questions. Dr. Kumar, there are a couple of them who want to contact you. They want to know how to contact you, but I'm sure they'll find email ID somewhere or the other.
Kumar at tejas.networks.com. That's it.
Kumar at tejas.networks.com. Satish, your email ID.
It's satish.jamadagni at ril.com.
At ril.com.
The name that is flashing on the screen.
We will put it out in our description of the program when it is uploaded on YouTube. And Professor Kamakoti, your ID we have, and we will put it up there. But thank you very much once again for an insightful discussion. You want to, enjoy your birthday the rest of the day, and we will come back again on one of these discussions, which are very important from national perspective too. Thank you very much for watching StratNews Global.
Thank you. Bye-bye.